The New York Auto Show is next week, but a whole bunch of automakers wanted to get a head start and have debuted a whole bunch of new cars this week, so let's get right into it. One of the new cars that debuted this week is the new Honda Civic Si, and it may seem like it's been the 20th time we've seen a Honda Civic in the last couple of years, and that might be this model's biggest problem, because does anyone really care about it now that the Type R is out? I'm not sure. And a lot of fanboys are a little bit disappointed with this model because it doesn't have more power than the old one, but what they're not looking at are all the other performance upgrades that'll make it drive better. The new Si is lighter and more rigid than the old one, and it gets a sportier suspension, an adaptive damper system, upgraded steering, better brakes, and a sport mode, and a limited slip diff. Now back to the power that people seem to be so upset about. For the first time ever, the Si has a turbocharged 1.5-liter 4-cylinder, making 205 horsepower and 192 pound-feet of torque, so it does have more torque than the old one. Like before, a 6-speed manual is the only transmission you can get. The Si starts in the mid-20,000s and goes on sale this May. Mercedes also has performance on its mind and has debuted 2 new AMG versions of its GLC SUVs. Both the GLC 63 and the Coupe version are powered by a 4-liter bi-turbo V8 with 469 horsepower and 479 pound-feet of torque. You can also get the Coupe in an S model that gets an upgraded 503 horsepower and 516 pound-feet of torque. All models get a 9-speed automatic and sound ridiculous. All 3 models have an air spring suspension with adaptive adjustable damping, all-wheel drive, fully variable torque distribution, and a rear axle limited slip diff. All in, the GLC 63s can get to 60 miles an hour in 3.9 seconds, while the S version takes 3.7 seconds. I also really like the new grille because it's the same one on the beautiful AMG GTs, and it really helps it stand out from the regular GLC. The AMG GLC 63s will be available in early 2018. The updated Subaru Outback also debuted this week, and it's not as exciting as that AMG, but a ton more people will buy it. Subaru didn't mess with the crossover too much, instead making little changes here and there that add up to make the Outback a better car. It gets a few styling tweaks to make it a bit crisper all around, and it gets a bunch of new technology like adaptive headlights, high beam assist, and reverse automatic emergency braking. Subaru also says that the Outback will be better to drive, smoother, quieter, and a bit nicer inside. Power for the Outback still comes from either a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engine with 175 horsepower and 174 pound-feet of torque, or a bigger 3.6-liter flat 6 that makes 256 horsepower and 247 pound-feet. A CVT is the only option, but Subaru does say that it has been updated to provide smoother response. Buick also made headlines this week by debuting its all-new Regal, which now comes as a sportback just like the Audi A7 and a wagon. Both the sedan and wagon look really sharp and modern, but the real news is that they're both lighter than the old Regal and offer a ton of room inside. In the sportback, you get 31.5 cubic feet behind the rear seats and 60 with all the seats folded flat. In the Tour X wagon, there's a maximum of 73 cubic feet and all-wheel drive is standard. Both Regals get a 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder with 250 horsepower. Front drive models get 260 pound-feet of torque, but if you get all-wheel drive, torque gets bumped up to 295. Front drivers get a 9-speed automatic, while all-wheel drive ones get an 8-speed. The inside looks pretty snazzy too, and our own Craig Cole saw it in person.
After sitting in these cars, I've got to say I am extremely impressed by what Buick has done. These interiors are comfortable, well-built, and extremely fashion-forward. But outside, I've got to say I love the styling of the Tour X here. It just looks so right.
It goes on sale in the last quarter of this year. We've also discovered some interesting patents that prove that GM is working on some really interesting hardcore active aero for its new cars. AutoGuide.com has uncovered 8 separate patent filings by GM for a bunch of new active aerodynamic systems, and most of them deal with the control of different subsystems. No specific vehicles were mentioned in the patents, although a picture of a Camaro does appear in some of them. It appears to be a 5th-gen model, and this might be simply a test mule for the active aero. The real question is, which vehicle will use this active aero system first? If spy photos are to be believed, the upcoming Chevy Corvette ZR1 has already been spied with some active Aero elements, making it the most likely candidate. We're also hoping it'll find its way to a high-performance Camaro, but so far there isn't a lot of proof to suggest that's happening. And finally, more Dodge Demon news. It runs on 100-octane race fuel. Bye! Actually, there is one more thing. We just didn't want to talk about the Demon anymore. We're just so annoyed. We leave you this week with this hilarious video of some Russians curling with cars.